levies to deal with somebody else's excess. It's a little bit like saying, James, stop eating so many chips because somebody next door to you is getting fat. It's a complete nonsense. Thank you. I've had my rant. You can have yours. I've got 2 free lines into the building. It's 0344 499 1000. Talk to me about the government, their energy plans, and how they can persuade you to use less gas or fossil fuels. Now, you'll notice that I've been frothing a little bit. And the reason that I've been frothing a little bit is because Dr. Roger Givolb is joined me, CEO of Fair Money, personal finance and credit expert, joins me now. Dr. Roger, good morning to you.
Good morning, James.
I've done the frothing because you've gone down the sarcasm route this morning. So let's talk about the homes market. And apparently, according to you, it's been trashed. But then you become very sarcastic. Why?
Well, I think everything that you and your callers have said is absolutely right. I mean, this government, their energy policy is basically gaslighting. That's what they keep doing, is gaslighting us.
Well, I wish they would, because gas is a very wonderful source of energy.
Yes, except it's very expensive. And this newest policy, before I come to homes, if I may, this newest policy, let's go green, let's be carbon neutral. Why don't you start using more electricity? Is really the biggest craziness of them all, because, of course, as I and others have been banging on for years about, electricity is tied to the price of gas, which is much more expensive.
Well, you see, it's partly that, but then also, all I would say is provide the alternative first and then tell us what we can and can't do and start to... If we had a choice, then by all means start to tax us against those choices, which is why I get so frustrated about private jets and various other things, which is, look, I've been on private jets, I've been fortunate enough to use them for work and various other things. No, I don't have one, and it's not a regular thing, and frankly, they're completely unaffordable for you, me, and all of us. But, you know, asking us to pay for basically people who are using those things is not acceptable. Anyway, we must move on to your topics. So, homes market trash, what's going on?
Well, it's the same thing. They just keep making the wrong decisions. I mean, if people think there's a stink around Westminster, it's probably because so many of our politicians couldn't even run a bath. It's just unbelievable. They keep making these interest rate rises, which are totally unnecessary, are not protecting us against inflation, nor protecting the pound against the dollar. And mortgage rates monthly are now way more than double what they were a year ago.
Correct.
And it's trashing the homes market. People are not buying. People are being forced out of their homes. They can't afford them. Property prices are dropping like a rock. It's a completely stupid decision.
Well, no. Now, there you see, property prices are not dropping.
Well, property prices in some areas have fallen by as much as 20%, James.
They have not.
In some areas, they certainly have. I'm not one of these people who's forecasting a major property disaster in the country, but things that should be on an upward curve, and these interest rates and mortgage payment increases are simply not helping.
But what's happened is that real prices have fallen. So if, for example, you had said to me, the housing market has stalled, which it has, and part of the problem is that we've got inflation at over 10%, therefore house prices should have gone up by 10% to keep pace with inflation. They haven't, which means that in real terms they have fallen. But where I'm concerned, and where I think you and I would agree, is that the Bank of England have taken this view that they have to increase interest rates. The government have done nothing to help the homeowner, and they have a responsibility. So, for example, there should be more relief on mortgages, particularly if it's for a primary residence. I can understand not having mortgage relief if you've got people with a string of properties, but if you've got one property and it's got one mortgage, then using mortgage relief to stop people losing their homes would be a good thing.
Well, we had mortgage relief. In other words, you could deduct the interest you paid on your mortgage back in the 80s. We had that as they do in the United States. Of course, mind you, in the United States, there is no principal private residence exemption, and you pay 24% or more tax when you sell your primary home. So we're better off here in that sense. But yes, being able to deduct mortgage interest and things like that would definitely help the cost of living crisis. But it is, I maintain, being driven by these unnecessary interest rate rises that we've had that have done nothing positive and have simply, affected badly, let's agree, the housing market.
OK, where do you stand, though? One of the reasons that we've seen interest rate rises is that if the US raised their interest rates and we didn't, our currency would be trashed. And if our currency was trashed, then everything that we import, and given how much we import, would all become hugely more expensive.
Well, two things. Number one, we don't import 100% of what we buy, especially not these days. So the figure would be far more positive in our favor, even if the pound slipped. And secondly, hey, how is that working out for you? We're in the 120s. We've always been in the 150s. So it hasn't. These 11 rises within 1 year, James, have not protected the pound at all.
OK. Let's talk about cryptocurrency. It looks as if the government and regulation isn't as effective as it could or should be.
That's British understatement if I've ever heard it. Well, I mean,
I did my best.
It's just more of the same thing. It's just bad decisions, one after another after another. They have decided it's not only on crypto, but it's also on AI, artificial intelligence. The government announced a few weeks ago, and then again only yesterday, the first regarding cryptocurrencies, that they will be regulated, and Lord knows they need regulation. It's the Wild West, of course. They will be regulated by the current regime. There'll be no new bodies, no new laws. Everything is sufficient to regulate cryptocurrency. That's insane, given that cryptocurrency was invented in the first place to get around all the government regulations.
There is
artificial intelligence, which I said yesterday, again, the current system can handle this. And in fact, there won't be a regulatory body of this complex subject that few people even understand. We'll just give each different department responsibility for this. Can you imagine 6 different bodies of civil servants try to agree a policy on
No, they won't agree anything, Roger. Now, very quickly, just almost in a sentence or two, we got some advice from people who can't connect the dots. What's this frothing in the back?
Well, no. Finally, we've got some people who can connect the dots.
Oh, excellent.
UBS, the world's largest wealth manager, now that they've eaten up Debit Suisse after its failure, announced yesterday their advice not to buy stocks and shares for the foreseeable future. They didn't come out and say as much as that, but they are projecting a massive fall in stock markets, in the value of stocks and shares, and they're urging people to buy bonds and other debt instruments instead.
Well, then look at that advice. Now, I'm well aware that your badge says "if only." Dr. Roger, if only we had more time. So there we go. That's Dr. Roger.
If only.
Thank you very much indeed. That's Dr. Roger Givob, CEO of Fair Money Personal Finance and Credit Expert. Absolutely boiling over with sarcasm and froth, a bit of froth as well. We turn our attention back to energy discussions plus the papers. I'll be joined by the CEO and founder of the Audley Group. We'll be talking to Nick Sanderson. That's coming up next.